And speaking of skittish people, over in retail land, things are far more problematic for David Jones than they are for BHP and Rio. Net profit for the half was down 20%, and the company said the profit for the full year would be down as much as 40%. So its share price was predictably hammered. Here's CEO Paul Zara.
It's certainly been the toughest retail conditions that I've seen in my career. I've only ever worked in retailing, and I've been in this industry now for 30 years. It's also, I had a pretty tough transition, which has been well documented, so it's been a pretty tough 2 years out of my retail career. I've got the full backing of the board. They understand we need to invest to move from being a survivor to a thriver, and that's what today is about. Today's about drawing a line in the sand, righting the wrongs of the past and moving forward.
Well, DJ's is going to try to spend its way out of trouble. 300 more floor staff, more stores, bigger online offering, reversing what the previous CEO, Mark McInnes, did. But interestingly, McInnes is now doing it again at Premier Investments, that is cutting costs, which they own a portfolio of 7 clothing retailers. Here he was on Friday announcing cost cutting, while his old employer is increasing costs.
We are closing loss-making and marginal stores, and we will continue to do so. We are changing the negotiation framework with landlords to be about performance of a centre or a strip. We will be negotiating with the SDA for productivity improvements to offset inflation increases.
I think DJ's has got 2 major challenges. The first is they seem to have lost a lot of customers because the service levels dropped. They cut the cost at the shop floor level. Wonder whether or not those people are going to come back. And the second thing is that the next generations of shoppers don't shop on service, they shop on price. They discover prices instantaneously on their phone. The real question is DJ's the only place you can buy what they sell, and in a lot of cases with instant price discovery, the younger shopper can source that product anywhere from overseas, or indeed use that to look for a cheaper alternative than DJ's domestically.
I actually think Paul Zara should become a football coach, because his use of cliches is second to none. But I mean, look, he's picked up on this thing called omni-channeling. Now, that was introduced by Jerry Harvey, of all people, who obviously had it written for him when he did his profit report recently. We're going to get into omni-channeling, which means, we're going to have a website. Suddenly DJ's is doing the same thing. I would be very nervous about that company. I mean, opening more stores, they already have stores, I would have thought, in all the good spots to have them. I don't know if opening more department stores is the way to go.
And they're starting to use this expression, price harmonisation, which is another word for our stuff is too expensive, and everyone's found out, and so what they're going to have to do now is go back to their suppliers, and they are actually negotiating lower prices for some of the goods that they're buying from the likes of Lancôme and Kiehl's and Yves Saint Laurent. But it's just the customer value proposition, as David Jones has discovered, isn't there anymore. I mean, why do people just don't want to buy expensive stuff from a big store anymore? And it's so basic.
So there's a sense from David Jones now that they stuffed up under Mark McInnes. And now they're trying to right that. So would you now back, if you're an investor, would you back Paul Zara or Mark McInnes at Premier Investments?
And Mark
or
McInnes,
neither? None of the above.
And Mark McInnes has actually been building websites for, at Just. He's got some pretty decent online retailing going at some of those brands. So I don't know why it's taken David Jones 2 years to get to this point.
I just reckon with Premier Investments, you've got to remember, Mark McInnes is the CEO, but of course Solly Lew is the chairman. He is the driving force behind that business, and there is no savvier person in Australian retail. He knows when to buy businesses, he knows when to sell them. I think if I had to back someone in retail, he'd be the one I'd go with.
Well, Ed, are there any retailers you like?
There are, yeah. We do. We like Domino's pizzas, for example.
They retail pizzas.
They retail pizzas, and during the GFC, everyone still bought pizzas.
And they do it online, don't they?
They do it online. They, roughly half of their sales are now made online, so you can't import a pizza from overseas any cheaper than you can get it from your local Domino's. And they're rolling out stores. They're very
it'd be cold, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So and they're very clever retailers. They're growing stores in France, of all places. You'd think that Aussie pizza retailers in France is a bit of a stretch, but they are doing it very well. Oroton is another one, luxury brands, and
Yeah, their profit went up this week.
it did. Yeah.
And so they've got their own brand as well as their own stores.
That's right. So you think in an environment where DJ's sales are falling, you would expect Oroton to be seeing the same thing, but their sales are growing at 9%. And one of the simple things is that you can't get an Oroton handbag offshore via a cheaper website. If you want a bag and it's a destination bag, it's what you've got in your mind when you look for it, then you can only buy it via Oroton's website.
But I mean, then again, you look at Kathmandu. Now, Kathmandu has its own brand of stuff, and much more of us are supposedly hiking in the bush and going for trail walks and all that sort of thing, but they also had a profit warning during the week. So it seems to me that very few firms are immune from this.